So there might be times where we have a polynomial that any of the strategies that we've used don't work to factor that polynomial, but it still has real zeros. And so it can be factored, but those strategies that we have just don't work. So in the next couple sections, they kind of all go together. We're going to look at how can we figure out what one of those zeros might be, and then divide out that factor. So in section 5, we're just looking at dividing polynomials. And the first way we're going to do that is through long division. Now, if you haven't done long division with numbers before, it might be helpful to go and look for a video about how to do long division with numbers, because the steps that we'll take and how it looks is going to be very similar to long division with numbers. Okay, but here we're going to divide polynomials using long division, and we'll stop when we get to a remainder, but for the actual use of this, we're not going to be interested in the cases where we have a remainder, and we'll see why that is eventually. But this one, we're just going to be practicing polynomial long division. So let's look at this first example. We have 3x cubed plus 7x squared plus 21x minus 11 divided by x plus 3. And so we're going to set this up just like we would if we were doing long division. We put whatever we're dividing by on the outside, and we put the thing that we are dividing underneath the division bar, I guess is what you could call it. Okay, so there we go. We're dividing 3x cubed plus 17x squared plus 21x minus 1 by x plus 3. So when we do long division, you first start out with how many times does this go into the largest part. So how many times does this go into 3x cubed? And that's maybe a weird question. And so actually all that we need to consider is x. How many times does x go into 3x cubed? Well, what's 3x cubed divided by x? It would be 3x squared. Okay. So then we take that and multiply 3x squared times x plus 3. So 3x squared times x plus 3 is 3x cubed plus 9x squared. All right? And then if you remember with long division, we take that and subtract it. So we subtract 3x cubed plus 9x squared from the things above. And 3x cubed minus 3x cubed, well, that goes away. We have nothing to go right there. So then 17x squared minus the positive 9x squared leaves us with 8x squared, right? And then in long division, we bring down that next part. So here we bring down a plus 21x, and now we repeat this process. How many times does x go into 8x squared? What would we need to multiply to get to 8x squared? Or what's 8x squared divided by an x? Well, that's a positive 8x. And so now we again multiply 8x by x plus 3. So 8x times x plus 3 is 8x squared plus, what's that, 24x. And we subtract that again. So 8x squared minus a positive 8x squared, 0. 21x minus 24x is negative 3x. And now we bring down that negative 1. And we repeat this again. how many times does x go into a negative 3x? So what's negative 3x divided by an x? Well, that's just negative 3 multiply negative 3 by x plus 3. So negative 3 times x plus 3 is going to be negative 3x minus 9. And again, we have to subtract that whole thing. And just make sure that when you do the subtraction, you're subtracting both pieces inside. Okay, that you don't add straight down. So negative 3x minus a negative 3x, that's going to give us 0. And negative 1 minus a negative 9, so that's negative 1 plus 9, right? Which leaves us with, I messed up. That's not a negative 1. That's a negative 11, so let's change that. I just misprinted there. So 11, negative 11 minus a negative 9. Okay, so that didn't really cause us any problem. We caught that soon enough. So negative 11 minus negative 9, so negative 11 plus 9 is a negative 2. So now, how many times does x go into a negative 2? It doesn't. So this piece here is our remainder. So a remainder still has, that's still trying to get divided by the x plus 3, right? It doesn't divide evenly, so that's our remainder. And so we would have minus, because it's a negative 2, so negative 2 over x plus 3, I can write that a little better, over x plus 3, because we haven't yet divided that by x plus 3. So this here, 3x squared plus 8x minus 3 minus 2 over x plus 3 is what we get when we do that division. Now again, going forward, we're not really going to be interested in the cases where we have a remainder, because we're going to want something to divide out evenly. Let's look at our other example. So here we have x cubed minus 3x squared minus 7 divided by x squared minus x minus 2. So we're dividing by a little bit bigger of a piece, but our process remains the same. And one thing to note here is we don't have an x term, but we still need to consider that. So we're gonna fill a space here with minus 3x squared. We're gonna fill a space there with 0x minus 7. Okay, so we're missing that x terms, but we still need to hold a place for that because it still might show up. Okay, so we have this plus 0x. So we do the same thing. How many times does x squared go into x cubed, or what is x cubed divided by x squared? Well, that is just an x. So then we multiply x by this whole thing, and that gives us x cubed minus x squared minus 2x. Now we see why it's important to have that 0x filled in, right? And then we subtract this whole thing. So x cubed minus x cubed, 0. Negative 3x squared minus a negative x squared, so negative 3x squared plus x squared is negative 2x squared. And then 0x minus a negative 2x is going to be a positive 2x. And we bring down that negative 7. So now how many times does x squared go into a negative 2x squared? So, or what's negative 2x squared divided by x squared? Well, that's just negative 2. Multiply that by the whole thing on the left. So negative 2 times x squared is a negative 2x squared. Negative 2 times a negative x is going to be plus 2x. And negative 2 times a negative 2 is going to be plus 4. And then this whole thing needs to be subtracted. So negative 2x squared minus negative 2x squared is 0. 2x minus a 2x is 0x. So that doesn't really matter either. And then negative 7 minus 4 is a negative 11. So all we really have left there is a negative 11. Does x squared go into negative 11? It does not. So there's our remainder. So we have a negative 11 that has yet to be divided by x squared minus x minus 2. So x minus 2, x minus 2 minus 11 over x squared minus x minus 2 is what we get when we divide there. And that is polynomial long division.